May long weekend is almost upon us, and we know that's the weekend when the urban planting really starts in Saskatchewan. Joining us now for some tips and tricks is soil scientist Ashley Esakin from Gardening in Canada. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Let's start with garden bed prep. We had a really dry summer last year. Where should we start?
So it is incredibly dry, despite the fact that it seems like we're getting a ton of moisture right now. So I would encourage everyone to actually look into some form of mulch. This can be in a grass cycling form, such as cutting the lawn and then using the lawn clippings to help retain moisture, using wood chips, straw, anything of that nature. It's going to cut down on the water bill and it's going to save your garden. So that is my number one tip for this year due to the lack of soil moisture that we have right now.
I grew up in a direct seed sowing house. We bought the packages, you put the seeds in the ground, some water, hope they do their thing. Is there a best way to seed sow?
So one of the really great ways to do this is to actually get a piece of wood or a plastic marker and put a measuring tape on it and mark out your distances or your depths to actually see that. And this is going to help you very quickly determine how deep you need to sow your seeds. When in doubt, you always want to sow a little less in depth than what the seed package is telling you, because we need them to reach the light in the amount of time that they have allocated based on that seed. Things that are smaller in size, like lettuce seeds, actually need a little bit of sun in order to germinate. So if you broadcast those along the top of the soil surface and then use a light dusting of compost, that's going to give you the best results. And remember, you need to read back the packages. If it says thin, then you need to thin those seeds to get the proper bulk of the plant to grow. And this plants that fall under this category are radishes, beets, carrots, lettuce, things of that nature.
Some people have already started their flowers and fruits and veggies indoors. What's the best way to transplant those outside and when?
Yeah, so here in Saskatchewan, we have a last frost date in some cases that can go as late as June 10th, and that's for most of us here in Saskatoon. So I encourage you to look up your last frost date and then plant after that time. A general rule of thumb, particularly because our springs aren't necessarily always following the same pattern, we want to aim for our nighttime temperatures to be above 10 degrees Celsius. So when our nighttime temps are above 10 degrees Celsius, it means we're pretty good to actually sow or transplant outdoors. You, of course, want to harden your plants off for approximately 1 to 2 weeks prior to transplanting them outdoors to prevent things like transplant shock and sunburn. My fair skin is very sensitive to this, so I know how plants feel. Now, keep in mind when you do transplant outside, you should be using something like recycled containers, 5-gallon pail buckets with holes cut in the bottom, or milk jugs, which we've shown on the CBC Instagram and TikTok to actually protect that plant from high winds, too much moisture, and just the elements in general, and you should be okay. Another hack you can try that's going to help you enormously is actually solarizing the soil and warming it up. So remove the mulch from the top of the soil and use a plastic film to place on top of the soil surface for the next week or so. Really get the heat temperatures up in that soil, and that will reduce transplant shock just in general.
Ashley, thanks so much for the tips and tricks.
No problem, anytime.
Ashley Esakin is a soil scientist based out of Saskatoon. You can find more tips and tricks on Instagram and YouTube. Just look up Gardening in Canada.